Hello, everybody. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, the level 2 recording for October 20th. And I'm doing an advanced explanation of the flying rainbow lasagna, how it relates to the Merkaba or the star tetrahedron, and how that relates to our flight through time. And I also want to talk about my practice of doing the flying rainbow lasagna and what some of these hand movements mean, like the actual a more practical description and application. Because, okay, when I spoke about, let me put things down a little bit so I can gesture more. In level 1, creating these two counter-rotating equilateral pyramid tetrahedron structures, and how one of the first things I do in order to do my flying rainbow lasagna dance, I eat a bunch of physical food from my body, so I got plenty of available food and fats and carbohydrates. I do sun gazing. I inhale that energy into my body, and I have a wonderful, David Lear is one of the students in this class, and he wrote a very good description based on my oral descriptions of this, put into words very well and distilled it down, and I'll add it as part of what I'm sharing here. This idea of ingesting energy through sun gazing, ingesting physical energy, and then the first thing that I do is I do the Merkaba, that's like clearing the decks. This is also like saying I'm creating a protected energy field around me. I work in my studio. I'm here in my new studio right now. This is my creative space. I have created and prepared and cleared out all of the stuff that's not supposed to be here in this space so that I have light, I can see what I'm doing. I have enough floor space so that I can, carry around a big painting. I'm like saying that is analogous to doing the Merkaba and saying, I'm now creating my studio for reality creation. And it is divine co-creation. In level 1, what I spoke about was the upward pointing aspect of the star tetrahedron that is very specific, the downward pointing one that is receptive, and how this ends up making a partnership, because that is what this is. I say all the time, we are in a symphony of life. We are combining our music with the music of many other living beings, and also that in terms of connecting our minds together, that you're not swimming around in your own private kiddie pool. And water. The idea of encrypting your DNA, that no one else should be able to come in, like after you make a painting in your beautiful studio, and where you walk away and you're like, oh, I painted that vase of flowers just perfectly. No one else should be able to come in afterwards and smear it all around and change it. So that's another big aspect of the flying rainbow lasagna creation, like the act of creating reality when you do these inner exercises. And one of the other ones is you're allowed to make mistakes. So what is my process like when I make a painting like this? Do I just dive directly in knowing exactly what I'm doing? No, actually no. Sometimes it's an exploration. I don't know exactly what I'm doing. So first what I do is I get a big giant piece of paper. First I get a little piece of paper that doesn't cost very much at all. I just do little sketches. And then I move into a slightly larger piece of paper. That's also just a cheap piece of paper. It's 10 cents. It's a very minimal investment. And I do drawings on a cheap piece of paper. And then when I start to figure out more of what my ideas are and what I want to do, then I get a big giant piece of paper. But I'm still not painting on the actual canvas yet. And I do a detailed drawing of everything that I want to be in that painting, but I do it in pencil. It's just the beginnings of it. It's not in indelible ink. And I still have the ability to erase what I don't want, what I don't feel is right. And I stand back and I look at it and I think about it. And so what I'm trying to say is, after a lot of juggling and drawing and erasing and rewriting and putting it in and taking it out, then I finally am ready to get into the actual indelible ink and actual indelible paint that I can't get rid of. This is the same thing with doing the Merkaba and doing the flying rainbow lasagna dance and reality creation. It is totally appropriate, and I was saying this in level 1, don't have to be an instant virtuoso. And during my drawings, sometimes I have pencil lines, and I get to erase the pencil lines that I don't want to be there in the final painting. So this is what I'm trying to say, because I tend to be hyper responsible. I tend to be so super responsible that I'm like, oh, I don't want to make any mistakes. I don't want to make any ugly marks or fingerprints or smears on the canvas. I want everything to be totally perfect. And the canvas is life, right? I want life to be totally perfect. I want to make a beautiful reality creation with my mind. However, we are exploring. We're in a process of exploration. You can't expect yourself to be an instant expert. So you got to give yourself some wiggle room and the capacity to erase And you can also erase guidelines. Like in all of these paintings, first I draw extensive guidelines that tell me where I want things to be, and I know that I'm going to erase them at the end of everything. So when I do my flying rainbow lasagna dance, you know, I've taught you, we've got the up down motion, the side side motion, the in out motion, the diagonal, like end over end motions. But you'll also see me at a certain point doing a motion like this. And it's very similar to when we see chromosomes arranging for mitosis, that they kind of make these X-shaped arrangements, like this is an X here and this is an X here, and they start to come together. Well, when I'm doing that, so I'm creating like a bubble of energy, and that bubble of energy is made out of all these different motions and dances that are going on, and also filled with my desires and intentions and requests and partnership with the cosmos. When I'm doing this, at a certain point, I erase the things that aren't supposed to be there. So I've talked about Merkaba for protection, DNA encryption, and then this is one of the next things that I'm teaching. This is level 2 for the experts. When you're beginning to do your flying rainbow lasagna dance, one of the key motions is, you could do it in your own way, but for me, it is the sense of erasing what I don't want. Because maybe during that flying rainbow lasagna session, maybe my mind wandered and I was like, oh yeah, really got to pay my car insurance. So then do I have to worry? Oh no, now because I thought that thought, it's like, you know, now is that going to be written into the fabric of reality? Aurora needs to pay your car insurance. Oh no. No, I don't think that way at all. I think, wow, I love myself. I love my mind. I love my mind that it just told me that I needed to do that, you know, in this moment. Why in this moment? So when I'm like, oh, erase that car insurance thought. Or maybe it's something malevolent. Maybe it's like something was trying to tell you, oh, something terrible is going to happen, and you're writing that into the you know, reality. Erase, and then take away that errant possibility that you did not want to have happen. Or even this. Sometimes I've been working in my physical art studio and I accidentally put my elbow in the thing that I just painted. Like this used to be really like worse in some of the other like smaller places that I've worked in, but it's like you just paint something totally perfect, and then it's like, oh, you put your hand out, you're like, oh, that's great. I just smushed the entire thing that I intended to make totally perfect. That's also an aspect of erasing, because all of this flying rainbow lasagna activity, it is about sending out waveforms. Here, I should grab a little image and show you with an image. It's about sending out waveforms from, get the pencil going, and get a right color, from this part right over here, from your inner eye. So I'm sending out all of these wonderful projections into the world. We're all sending out all these projections in doing the flying rainbow lasagna dance. This is about intentionally sending out those projections. And let's say, oh no, let's say I sent out something that was not exactly what I wanted. I sent out this red slashy kind of thing. It's like, wow, that was not really what I intended. Or let's even say this, let's say that as a byproduct of these nice blue wavy waveforms, as they start to add together, you know, sometimes when you make music, sometimes you can get feedback that's unintentional, but it happens as an unintentional byproduct of the notes that you do want to have happening. So let's say this red stuff over here, this is the feedback. Look, where all these things are kind of overlapping together and they're unintentionally creating some unpleasant sounds. Well, when I do that erasing motion, what I'm doing is getting rid of the feedback, getting rid of that, because it's totally what I want. My intention for sharing this information is to be, people are empowered, people are inspired to do their own art project of their life, not feeling so constrained out of a sense of inner responsibility that people are too afraid to experiment. Because clearly my class, these are not the malevolent, evil Rothschild people that want to own and control the entire world. Like my class, you're all people that are real organic people that want to be more empowered in their lives and more artistic and healed and all of those things. So that is my intended audience, intended audience for this message, that instead of constraining oneself by thinking, oh, I hope I don't make any mistakes, I hope I don't step on anybody's toes. I call this also, this is the advanced jazz band. the barbarian musicians are out there. Those are the barbarians that have to be told, like, shut up, you are too loud, like, stop playing, please. This class is for the advanced level musicians, where it's like everybody's so good that it's like, okay, I'm gonna let that guy solo, I'm gonna let that guy solo, I don't want to play too loud, I don't want to play too this. So I want everybody here to feel like happy and comfortable. You have this capacity, you should be allowed to use this capacity, and using it in a good way means in some ways exploring, like being a jazz musician. You got to be a little bit free to explore. Try this combination. What does it sound like? I don't know. If it sounds like crap, you know what you can do? Erase and take it out. So when I do this music, this collaboration with the symphony of life, when I do this Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, it is an innovation. It's new in every moment. Sometimes there are mistakes, but don't be afraid. Like, you know, keep on innovating. And I do the erase, like erase out anything that was unintentional. And I also do these kind of like, you could think of them as paragraph breaks or the end of a measure in music. So in music notation, you know, you've got notes on the staff, like 5 lines that each have notes that go up and down on the staff. And you've got breaks. I should draw this instead of just telling you with my mouth. Here, this is the musical staff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you know, you got note, 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 and then you got the end of a measure, a line like that. And then you begin again, note, note, note. And the idea is, in doing the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, when I do this motion, I'm creating a measure. And that's also like creating an energetic firewall for all of the stuff that I've created up to that point. Like, hey, that stuff is all great and doesn't have any mistakes. Like, we've checked that one for any spelling mistakes. We've checked that segment for any spelling mistakes. And now we've checked that segment for any spelling mistakes. And then let's put that little measure mark there, that little paragraph break. That's what that motion is. So it's like, dance and dance and dance and dance, dance and get rid of all the mistakes and put that, it's like sealing it up. Like, put that little measure break there. And then don't be afraid to experiment on the next measure. And if you screw up, it's okay. It's not gonna go all the way back into the previous measure. That you've got that, like saving the term paper. Or if you do Photoshop, saving that version of the Photoshop. You have saved that version of reality. Photoshop is a good analogy to use, because we keep on adding more and more layers to reality. Every time we do the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, we are rearranging reality and introducing new variables. So what this also means is that if anybody made any prediction at any time, like 2,000 years ago, somebody wrote a prophecy and they said, you will eat bacon and eggs for breakfast. That might have been true 2,000 years ago. However, as soon as the Flying Rainbow Lasagna was invented, the puzzle pieces of reality got rearranged, and that prophecy is no longer relevant. And this is what I'm trying to say to everyone. We are in the era now beyond which prophecy is relevant. Like, please do, I hope that no one in this class is guiding their life based upon any ancient prophecy, any old stone tablet, or even something that was passed down through oral history. That all of that is like a dress pattern that is for a dress that no longer fits, that we are not shaped like that anymore. We don't have that as our basic dress. That once you get a pencil with an eraser where you can erase out what you don't want and write in what you do want, you don't have to go according to ancient prophecies. But of course, there are a lot of people that their basic presumption, oh, this ancient prophecy is going to come true, therefore I will live my life and acquiesce my power to that ancient prophecy and live my life fulfilling it, that basically that is what is going on. So I'm talking about biblical literalism. I'm talking about the book of Revelations. I'm talking about people who, Kali Yuga is another part of it, Joel. I'll respond to that. The Hindu tradition that has the idea of the end of an age. And Terence McKenna speaks and writes brilliantly about this, the idea of your own personal eschaton meaning end of the world, relating to the overarching eschaton, or end of society, end of humanity, end of the biosphere on Earth. That for a lot of people, they imagine those two things as being inexplicably intertwined. And to me, this goes back to ancient trauma at the end of the catastrophe that ended our antediluvian world, that was both a personal death for so many individuals and a death of the culture, a death of that level of mentality and perception. Because we lived differently, our priorities were different, our whole entire flight through time field was different. And that was a huge loss that is similar to death. Kind of like many people have been displaced by massive fires here in California right now. And although their bodies might not have died, they have lost their homes, their communities, all the things, all the stability and the foundation that they care about. It's as if they have gone through a type of death, a transformation, and they're not the same person on the other side of it. That is what that antediluvian fall of consciousness was like for a lot of people. So it created a very, Tech is saying the worst has already happened. This is absolutely true. So when I structured this class for the first 4 years or so, I made everybody go through many, many months of lessons all about unconditional love and blah, 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 so that when we find out that the worst has already happened, we've already got like the emotional fortitude to be able to deal with it so that people don't fly off the handle. However, it's very disturbing information. Our planet was raped. Our bodies, who we are, was taken away from us. Like, that's incontrovertible. If you feel harmed or diminished or constrained, I understand, I validate those feelings, and that's why I am here in order to share this idea. So Tech is asking about aftershocks, and I'll get to that other question comment too. But the idea is, if you've been raped or traumatized in the past, you do not have to continually re-experience it. You do not have to project that forward into the future and say, well, that I ate a bad peanut butter and jelly sandwich 2 years ago, and then I ate it again 1 year ago, and that means if I project into the future, every year I will eat a bad peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That does not have to be our truth. Our truth can say, wow, we ate a whole lot of bad sandwiches up to the time that the flying rainbow lasagna was created and invented, and now we have a new response of what we can do in response to rape or bad peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And that is, we can rearrange our DNA. So your DNA doesn't have to be considered like shackles or chains or basic inborn limitations. That can be the basic starting point, the jumping off point, the puzzle pieces that you can rearrange into a new level of reality. This is what we are doing right now. So this jumping forward into a next higher dimensional level, for anyone who didn't watch level 1 of this, who's just tuning in now, that is what this is. Taking this ordinarily donut-shaped or toroidal energy field and turning it into a flying rainbow lasagna. I'm going to get to Joelle's, that's another really good comment, that this is the inner transformation, gaining another dimension, gaining another degree of freedom. In fact, this is so relevant. Let me not skip by. I always do that. Joelle says, new dimension equals new rate through time. That is beautifully well put and very accurate and true. That I say this all the time. If we were like a little ant or a little caterpillar and we're stuck to the flat surface of time, like we're stuck to a flat leaf, and all you can do is crawl along on a flat leaf. But if you grow wings, and literally that's what these 4-lobed shapes are, what I spoke about in terms of the transformation in level 1, transforming from a flat hexagonal carbon shape into a diamond-shaped carbon shape. Basically, we're taking those flat, almost like like chips that are what the hexagons are, and adding a fold to it. That is what happens when we go from being a hexagonal-based being, purely cellular, only about the organic nature, and we add in this higher dimensional perception of the time body. And I know everyone was here for level 1, but let me just redraw it for anyone who's accessing this out of order. The idea of perspective, that we interpret this as a window with space and volume in it because we have all been taught perspective. Like before I drew that circle, if I drew that, some people would say like, well, like Aurora just drew some kind of a pyramid with like a seesaw balanced on the top of it. That's what some cultures would say. But as soon as I add in, oh, here's the sun and here's mountains, you're like, oh, wait, Aurora just drew a very, very badly drawn, quick sketch of a landscape with a horizon in the background and a road going off into the distance, because that's our system of interpretation. We watch televisions and we watch movie screens that all have perspective that goes back into the distance and makes us think that we're in a 3-dimensional space when it's actually a flat 2-dimensional space. So we change our perception of time when we go from a flat 2-dimensional experience of time. Look, I wake up in the morning and then I have my breakfast and then I have my lunch and then I have my dinner and then I get up the next day and do the same thing. We change our experience of time when we learn that we can bend or fold the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. And then breakfast and dinner. Look, I'm breakfast, dinner, breakfast, dinner, breakfast, dinner. I'm literally, I don't have to leave my body. I can experience both breakfast and dinner at the same time. That is what the flying rainbow lasagna shape embodies. It is this idea that energy and entropy can both be two different states that are experienced at the same time, at the singularity, this purple inner convergence point, can be vibrating so quickly between those two different positions that it is as if it's in two places at the same time. Super, super, super fast. Even if I move my pen this fast, it starts to look like one big giant white object. This is a change in our perception, a change in our cellular structure, a change in the way that we move through time. So one of the things is I say we're redefining what it is to move through time chronologically. We don't necessarily have to become worse as we move through time. Like where this was like an old biological program that you have to, your skin has to get different texture, and you lose organ vitality, and you end up being bent over, and then you can't walk properly, and then you die. That has been running for a very long time. We can literally right now redefine, and we could say, well, no, we're moving through the time field, but that doesn't mean that the cells of our body have to experience so much degradation and wear and tear by moving through the time field. And I explained in level 1 that the degradation and the wear and tear is because we have been, we've commodified our time. Instead of saying my time is sacred, like my lovemaking is sacred, for most people don't commodify their lovemaking. Most people don't make sex tapes and aren't prostitutes. They just, make love to their partners and, romantic partners. But some people commodify that, and some people commodify their time. And they say, oh, I will very happily share my time with you for this much money. Like maybe $10 an hour, maybe $1,000 an hour, maybe $1 million an hour. But the idea is that your movement through time is supposed to be a sacred dance that you do in divine cosmic lovemaking partnership with the time field. That's what this is supposed to be. This not a random or arbitrary flight through time, but a very specific flight through time. And if I draw my little time vortex that I show all the time, and everyone in here is an expert and knows exactly what I'm talking about, this is the time vortex. And this, let's make this a light blue. This light blue pathway, that is the pathway of pure virtuosity, pure artistry, where everything that you are saying and doing and eating and all the energy that you're taking in, all the energy that you're metabolizing out is perfectly in tune with the music of the cosmos. And all of these other, I'll just make them black, all of these other timelines that fill up all the rest of this, all of that is the compromise. All of that is the stuff that is wrong notes, notes poorly played, notes out of time, things that you're not actually supposed to be saying or doing. And in a lot of ways, our society encourages that, like, good for you. You went out and did work for a boss, you played all the wrong notes, and you came up with $80. Do it again tomorrow. Like, none of that is respectful to the time field. So a part of this is popping forward into the next dimension. So what we're doing is essentially what the Tibetan Buddhists call creating your rainbow body. So I found this book one time. I was visiting a Tibetan monastery. Like, we had a break. There was a thing for lunch. I went to the bookstore, and literally a book jumped off the shelf that is called something like Rainbow Painting. And it is called Painting Your Rainbow Body. I said, I have to read this book. So I read it as much as I could while I was there. And it's apocryphal stories, or some stories from before, like hundreds of years ago, some that are from more modern times, of practitioners who transformed their cellular structure into what is essentially a harmonic light body. And that's called the rainbow body. And there's some very beautiful Buddhist paintings that show what this is. And one of the practices or aspects of it is recognizing and understanding that everyone else that you see in the externalized quote unquote world is actually yourself. That this is the combination of inside and outside. And this also relates to what I spoke about last week or a couple of weeks ago with cells of the body. These are individuated cells of the body. And this guy over here says, I'm looking out for number one. I only care about me. But if we put them all inside of a larger epidermis, then all of these little guys say, wait a minute, we're all fellow co-occupants of this larger being. We all need to work together and not try to kill each other and steal resources from each other, so that way this whole thing up here stays alive. And that is how my body works, and I hope that's how your body works too. Like, my eyeball cells are not competing for resources from my heart cells or my tooth cells. All of the cells of my body get money, energy, life force. That's the way it's supposed to be, but that's very, very different than human society and capitalistic economy. That's why it's very hard to get a change in mental state. So popping forward into the next dimension. How exactly do we do this? And let me draw this for us. The star tetrahedron, like if I say this is the very basic shape like this, what we end up doing is I add in these lines, like this. And then it's just like looking through that window. We transform we rearrange the puzzle pieces into a new format. Now I'm going to show you that this has become the octahedron. I used to have a little perfect octahedral crystal. I don't know where it's gone to, but this is now the 8-sided shape. And I'll highlight the sides for you so that you can see it, because I know it's hard. It's in a line drawing. Here's the front face. 1, side face 2, other side face 3, back face that we can't see 4, and then I'll count the ones on the bottom. 1 face that we can see, side face over here 2, side face over here 3, and then there's another face in the back that we can't see, that's 4. So this ends up having 8 sides. But wait, it's challenging because what we've got is this very beginning is a 6-sided shape. Like, we've got these 6 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is that same dilemma that I showed in level 1, this 6-sided shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we have to add in 7 and 8. And those, the 7 and 8, here I'm holding on to 7 and 8. Look, those are the 2 aspects that stick up above the flat plane. I'll draw it for you. Draw it. If this is the flat plane of those rotating spokes rotating on out, here's the one that sticks up, and here's the one that sticks down. That's called a higher dimension. Stuff sticks up or sticks down into a higher dimension. So we as humans are way more than just our physical cellular structure. I'm going to show you that picture again here too for level 2. The physical cellular structure of mitosis. I didn't draw this picture. I'm just using it for this class. Here we go. This is, get the pen. This is these are cells over here. These are cells, cell division. This is what happens when we get conceived and the natural exponential cell growth begins. And this 6-sided arrangement arises from the way that these spheres in the original cluster of our cells are clustered together. But if that's it, if you just want to define a human as a cluster of cells, then you're stuck on that level of, ducking off camera again, I know, the equilateral triangles that only have 60-degree angles and all are the same length on every side, that you're stuck at that level. And so there's a lot of things that are based on hexagons in our physical world, and there's a reason for it. Like, why do bees make their beautiful honeycomb as these 60-degree angles? Why do the carbon molecules fit together at 60-degree angles? Why does that all work together? Because that's a very stable shape for this physical cellular level of reality. Like, there's reasons why this geometry works here. It works here. But we're not just cells. We are cells that have time imbued with or intertwined with our cells. And for a very long time, humanity has not been able to effectively recognize time, measure time, navigate the time field, and see what's going on in a higher dimensional state. So when you go from being a little ant or caterpillar walking on the flat surface of time to being a higher dimensional higher dimensional dweller of time, you are no longer a surface dweller. You jump off the surface of time. And all of a sudden you are occupying this viewpoint here where you can see what's in the future and see where you've come in the past and even begin to see many different layers. Imagine I have 1,000,000 hands all stacked up together, and those are all the various different possibilities of time, that we have this possible realm. And then another, like I said, this is like Photoshop. different layers, different overlays. So our present experience of quote unquote objective materialist reality is the end result of all of those layers of reality that have been stacked on top of each other. And when we perform an activity like the flying rainbow lasagna, what we begin to do is rearrange the elements of those stacked layers of reality. And I've spoken about how you can take a scoop from the genetic buffet, a scoop out of that reality, a scoop out of that reality, put it all on your plate of the moment right now. That's like saying we have bent and folded the fabric of space, time, and consciousness, and now breakfast and dinner, breakfast and dinner, breakfast and dinner. Look, I'm taking a bite of breakfast, then I'm taking a bite of dinner, then I'm taking a bite of breakfast and a bite of dinner. This is a very different experience of reality. And of course, when I say that, I'm using metaphors that we can understand, because we will eat food differently, we'll metabolize food differently when we achieve this higher dimensional state. And in level 1, I spoke about how it was a transformation from the flat hexagonal shape into the diamond shape. This is also from the Far East, the Tibetan, your Vajrayana body, and I'll just write that word super fast, Vajrayana. I'm not a Buddhist practitioner, but I bring up these as cultural integument to these ideas. So this is in the Far Eastern Buddhist tradition, the idea of cultivating an indestructible diamond body. This is a body that would not be harmed, could not die, would not be destroyed in any way. So this is what I talk about when I show you this version of yourself. That would be your central core. What's that light blue timeline? This one right up here. That would be you achieving your diamond body. And that was what everybody did in the antediluvian world. We all had that experience. There was no hitting the membrane of death. There was no disease. There was no rigmarole. There was no endless iterations looking to see where's the wormhole out of here. How do we get out of here? There was coming here intentionally, having the experience of being embodied here, and then being able to transform and go in the direction that we wish to go. Wait, let me drink a little bit more water. I don't know if there are any questions. I know I'm moving fast. So we add an additional dimension, and we go from this shape into this shape, right? We add an additional dimension, and we go from the star tetrahedron, that's 2 tetrahedra that are shaped like this and all have 60-degree angles and all equilateral triangles, into the octahedron that then has a 90-degree angle. And also, I can hear some people thinking, Aurora, do I really have to learn about 90-degree angles and 60-degree angles and what an octahedron is and what this map is? It's like, yes, it's actually, this is the thing. People right now are being limited, not necessarily by a malevolent, overbearing overlord that's like, oh, I want to keep you down, but it is by lack of conception, like limited mental perspective and limited information. And that the way you get to the unlimited is by learning more. And it means some amount of self-cultivation and effort. So I don't know if other people experience this in, old-fashioned math class in grade school, but the teacher might ask a question like, who knows the answer? Blah plus blah equals what? And some kids would do the calculation and raise their hand and try to give an answer. And some kids would just sit quiet and be like, I'm just going to listen to other people and let them do the calculations to get the answer from them. In this experience, at this level of reality, with this level of virtuosity that we are cultivating, it's not enough to just sit in the class and let other people do the calculations and then you get the answers from them. Each person has to do their own calculations. Each person has to become a virtuoso. The virtuoso is you transforming your own physical structure. And this is also, I hope that you guys can sense my value system, or if you're new, and this is the only video of mine you've ever seen, I hope you can tell what my value system is. This is about personal freedom, your own personal music, your own, like you have your own unique and very valuable genetic code and very valuable genetic dance that you're supposed to be dancing. And that I'm not telling you, oh, you must dance like this, you must dance these prescribed movements. If you don't dance like this, you're going to hell. No, none of that at all. What I do is I encourage each person towards their own level of true virtuosity and to being an unpredictable jazz genius. Because if we were all genetic jazz geniuses and we were all constantly putting this down so I can gesture, constantly doing our dance, rearranging the basics of what we were given into something new. If we were all doing that, our world would be completely different. This is the solution, or this is the end to the battle, or this is the way that we transcend the huge iniquity that we have experienced. I need to drink more water. There's an enormous amount of suffering that is here on this planet, that is in this realm. It cannot be ignored, and it's part of why I'm here, and it's part of why I share this concept, that this is how we remove these profound levels of suffering that we are not actually supposed to be experiencing. You know, the divine creator, the great composer, did not say, how can I make their lives as painful as possible? How can I make them die as much as possible? No, the great creator was like, let's give them this beautiful central core timeline that they get to go on. And of course, it was the not good musicians that changed the musical score. So that's what this is all about. Instead of just decrying those musicians and saying, they are so bad, they are so naughty, we hate them so much, or life is so unfair, or this is so this. Instead, it's like, no, flying rainbow lasagna. It's a bucket and a mop. You actually have something that can be done in response to this profound injustice, to this iniquity. And that's why I, as an abstraction, am here in this body. I didn't just say, oh, look, an ant is being burned under a microscope. You know, that's a terrible thing that's happening down there. Oh, well, back onto my interdimensional cloud. I was like, no, that is not uncool. That is not fair. And I'm doing something in order to rectify this. And what I do is change my own body. This is the whole point. I'm drinking more water. Change your own body. You own your... I need to drink more. You own your body. I've got plenty more time. I say this all the time. The only real matter that we own in this world is the matter that is our physical body. And that I'm also describing is like our quantum laboratory. You know, it's the matter that we get to experiment with and say, hey, what happens if I do this? And what happens if I do this? And then what happens if I do this? That is what we are doing in terms of flying through time and doing these different sets of experiences. Like, I'm thinking this, I'm feeling this, I'm doing this. What happens as an end result of that? So we experiment with the matter of our body. And you don't need anybody else's permission to do this experiment. And you don't need a lot of money to do this experiment. Even though we all need to have food and water, and I have a light bulb over here that has electrons flowing in my wire. So yeah, brief plug. I always ask people, like, become a patron, help support my work if you feel this work is worthy, because we need that. But what I'm trying to say, it's not like you have to be like, oh, I got to pay my Ascension subscription. If I don't pay $35 a month, then, you know, I don't rearrange my puzzle pieces into a new way. It's not like that. It's not like, oh, you need to pay your like I pay for Photoshop $10 a month. You have to pay $10 a month to be able to access the software known as the Flying Rainbow Lasagna and apply it to your DNA. No, it's not like that at all. And that would be very self-defeating, because I want this to be a beautiful symphony of life where everybody has access to this concept. So that's why I also ask people, share this idea with people as widely as possible, with as many open, you know, people who are open to the idea. Like, I don't force it upon anyone, because this is the advanced jazz band. And you can ask questions like, well, Aurora, what would happen if an evil person, let me just drink more water, took the Flying Rainbow Lasagna? What would happen? It's why I don't have to worry about keeping it a secret, because this is not a practice or a shape that can be co-opted and misapplied. It's not like someone can take the Flying Rainbow Lasagna and make themselves super evil with it. What would happen is they would take this, rearrange their puzzle pieces, and reconnect to higher dimensional, less dense realms that give us information and life force energy and guidance, and they would realize, I've been doing everything wrong the whole way. It's kind of like that information has a purifying effect. And information is literally light, or information and photons can be seen as synonymous. That photons are thoughts and information that are coming from the stellar network, and that the more information and light and thoughts that are available, the more healing occurs. And this flying rainbow lasagna shape, what it does is brings in more information and light and vitality, and that is what changes an individual, that is what changes our society. So yes, I've said, why did I choose to do stuff about Merkaba today? Because we are experiencing this huge influx of energy that's about to hit us this weekend. And I say all the time that this is not like I'm going to keep the secrets of, Lamaze breathing while we're going through childbirth, or you can pay me only for people who pay me. Like, no, this is important stuff. We're literally doing this right now. We are literally transforming our bodies. So in order to transform, we do it using the fuel of consciousness that comes from the sun and the stellar network. And we also must do this transformation in response to this fuel or energy that is coming from the stellar network. Joelle is asking, is it the new moon? It's not the new moon. I'm talking about eruptions or emissions, like both particles and energy waves that have come from the sun, which is our nearest broadcaster, and that are moving through space, and that are set to reach where we are in orbit roughly around this weekend. And like all of this, there's this music, let's say the music is increasing tempo, or the metabolism of time is getting faster and faster. And we have to be good musicians and keep up with it. It's like, okay, the music's going faster, go faster, go faster, go faster. So let me also say this, because I wanted to say this as an analogy. Don't be concerned if you're not an instant virtuoso. The way, when I first started to learn to play the piano, I played by ear. And I would just kind of bop along with the beat. I would find one note and I would just hit that one note and hit it on the beat. And you can do that with your DNA and with your song too. You don't have to know every note. You can begin by just going along with the beat and just getting it. So that is what I try to tell people. You don't have to be an instant expert. And what have I also been saying about one of these hand motions that is like erasing the things you don't want and starting a new chapter. So you're allowed to do that too. So a big part of this is being free to experiment and being free to try these new things. Also, we are creating the pathway in the moment. It's not like there is a paved road that stretches in front of us and we know exactly where we're going. Like, I can look down the road and I can see exactly where it's going to go. The road is literally being paved one moment before we put our foot down. Like, we are paving the road of time as we're doing this. So not only are prophecies no longer applicable to what we are experiencing here, and we are creating that central core timeline. We are creating it with our minds and with our intentions and with what we are doing. So, if a person has become very despondent and if they're just like, I don't want to be in the physical reality anymore, I'm going to create death, then they create that death, or they have an expectation of destruction, or they have an expectation of their personal eschaton. It's not necessary to have that experience. I understand that people are creating it for themselves, but it is possible to create something that's a completely different creation experience. So now let me get to questions. I know I've been, this was very good, Joelle. I wanted to talk about this. She asks, what about the Kali Yuga and the cycles and prophecies in the Vedas? Does that not apply anymore? So what I would say is that is more of pre-programmed cultural expectation. Like in the Western world, Judeo-Christian, we got the Book of Revelations and the idea of, an end of time in that way. And with the Hindu tradition, it's the idea of the Kali Yuga, that we go through cycles. So in the Christian tradition, it's just like you're here, then you're dead, and not like, oh, it's an endless cycle. But the Kali Yuga, it's the idea that, we're going through rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. And I don't consider that to be necessarily more accurate or more positive. And the point is, it instills this inner expectation that one must die in order to transcend and reach immortality. For the Christian tradition is the idea of dying and going to heaven, like an immortal, the Roman Jesus who was crucified and then transcended the crucifixion. Or, the idea of you have to go through this destructive Kali Yuga before you get to the golden age. And I don't really embrace either of those, because flying rainbow lasagna means that we can rewrite this whole entire story. If you could rewrite the whole entire story, literally ask yourself this: would you write that narrative? Would you say, because you're now a divine miniature co-creator with, a pencil with an eraser, would you write that death is necessary? Rivers of blood must flow so that we can have a renewal. Would you write that story? Or would you write a different story? I would write a different story. And I hope that everyone who watches this can tell my value system by the story that I'm writing here. I'm not writing a story where we say, let's get out the guillotines, rivers of blood must flow, we got to cleanse the earth and purge what's evil so that we can finally have a good life. I'm actually not saying that. What I'm saying is, and what I'm also saying is that we each transcend this level of difficulty through personal mastery. The truth is, it really doesn't matter how bad the other musicians are, even though I do not say that it's okay to have these uncontrolled energy fields. You know, I protect myself with everything that I possibly can, shungite externally and internally, and try not to live in a house with a smart meter, and try to, that's the whole idea, that that's all bad music. It is bad music. It goes against the symphony of life. It goes against the symphony of life that your cellular structure is trying to embody just on a basic material level, beyond the concept of what your mind is thinking, what your feelings are feeling, and in what ways you are traveling through time on other levels. So yes, none of those impediments are okay. I'm not okay with any of that. It's totally, it's like if you were trying to write and play a beautiful symphony and someone was like duct taping your fingers together, or, you know, trying to hit your fingers with hammers. Not okay, not okay on any level. But, and what I'm trying to say to everyone is that we each get to be our own virtuosos. So with all of these difficulties facing us, we still each get to choose, what do I do with my thoughts, with my behavior, with my feelings, with my cellular response? We are all in this, you know, EMF soup, but not everybody gets cancer. And even if you get one cancerous cell or small mass in your body, that doesn't mean that it will kill you. You can transcend it. So it's all about your response to this. And a big part of it is the narrative structure that we tell ourselves about empowerment. So wouldn't it be amazing if, through Flying Rainbow Lasagna and other visualization techniques, everybody here was able to claim their true divinity and understand that each one of us is literally writing reality. You don't have to say, I'm writing the reality where a bunch of malevolent yet very powerful and wealthy bankers are doing whatever they want. I don't have to write that reality. I can write a different reality where I can say, wow, a malevolent and wealthy banker who has a totally broken down body and cellular structure, and who has not done any of the necessary inner self-cultivation, like for being quote unquote a good musician, is no longer allowed to be in the time field because the technology that kept them alive is now considered so aberrant that it is destroyed. Like, that's a better narrative. If you're the Hollywood scriptwriter and you're writing the events of reality, which events do you want to write? Events of total disempowerment? Some people are writing those events, the nuclear war events, the rivers of blood events. We don't have to write those events. We can be more imaginative. I've used that example too, that movie with the green lantern where he's got this ring of imagination that he can imagine anything with, but he gets into a tight spot, so he imagines a car that he can use to drive away, or a gun that he can use to shoot people. It's like, that's the lamest imagination in the world. You have the imagination machine right here, and we each can use it in order to imagine an empowered reality where you get to do what you need to do, where you're not impeded by other people. So this is the whole point. And doing this with your cells change the I want to say physical matter. We are redefining what physical matter is. And to me, that is the definition of what ascension is. That to me, ascension is not going somewhere else. It is staying here, but redefining what here is based upon having more light and more energy and more metabolism going on. Someone else was saying in the chat over here, what did you say? One Harmony. Tech was saying, so One Harmony is a lovely YouTube person who's been very good about being able to share my videos and ideas with other people. So I appreciate that very much. And Harmony speaks all about their ideas of ascension and what that is. So shout out to Harmony, and I hope everybody checks out their channel too. That we are many different musicians that are all working together to play this music. Or like trapeze artists, I swing to here and then you swing to here and then the energy transfers to there. That is what this real symphony is like. So perhaps if there's any more questions, I open the floor to any more questions. I have to end the recording very soon. Let me end on this note, this envisionment, this idea of, instead of everybody dies, there's a nuclear holocaust and everybody dies and then you go to heaven. Instead of envisioning that, why don't we envision instead that everybody becomes a genetic virtuoso of their bodies? And in one moment, recognizes and remembers their own divine nature, and that all of these different individual cells of divinity work together as this overarching divine body. That's the time body. And that this healing spreads outward in a ripple from our location in time and space to everyone else. And it doesn't have to take time. We don't have to put it into capsules and then give capsules to everyone to heal them. But this is an instantaneous healing, like the way, you know, you drop a bomb and the reverberation spread outward. But instead of a bomb of destruction, a healing that happens and reverberates outward in every direction, the past and the present and the future, and that this is what is going on right now. So I'm going to end on that envisionment. To me, that is what ascension is. We don't have to leave the planet, although at a certain point we will leave the planet, but not in a clank metal spaceship. And first, what we get an experience, we have the opportunity to experience what it's like to be here unconstrained. What would it be like if you could be in a body that was healthy and vital and metabolized well? We would all be like super athletes. We would literally be Olympians. What we now consider to be an Olympic athlete would be a normal person. We'd all be that, and we'd all be geniuses, and we'd all be musical virtuosos, and we'd all be virtuoso healers, you know, of Reiki or helping other people. We would all be all of that. And imagine what that society would be like. Imagine what the values of that society would be like, and the experience of navigating through, you know, and helping each other through the time field, what that would be like. So I'm just going to end the recording for right now and open the floor to any more questions. Any more questions in the chat or anything like that? Let me just check it out. Okay, yeah, and let me also say thank you to everyone who subscribes to my channel, because my stuff tends to get buried. It's the algorithm tends to bury. So if you've made it through these broadcasts, if you've hit this, please subscribe and encourage other people to subscribe to and share my videos, because that seems to be the way that the work actually gets out there. I'm not trying to keep any of this a secret. Literally today I shared with everyone the non-secret of interdimensional travel. Gaia is asking, is it a new semester? I'm kind of feeling like I'm going to start a new teaching cycle very soon, because I had a whole bunch of new people jump on board, and I feel like I've brought this to the conclusion of where it needs to be, but there's always new things that are going on. So I'll still do like the level 1, level 2 basic things. I'll see what I'm going to do for next week and how I structure everything. So thank you for asking that. But yes, please share the videos, encourage other people to subscribe, encourage other people to learn about this. This is not meant to be a secret or anything proprietary. I want everyone in the whole world to know about this, what it is, and have the opportunity to do it. So thank you very much. Just end this for right now.